Greetings, friends. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the delightful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also the lead author of a brand new best-selling book called Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment, which is available right now on Amazon. I encourage you to go check that out. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, and that we're coming out with a volume 5 of that early in 2025. So it's, lots of writing going on, and it's great. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. Today, we are embarking on episode 255, and today our topic title is Joy as Self-Care. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to put self-care on the back burner? With so many demands on your time, it might feel indulgent or even selfish to take a moment for yourself. But what if you could discover a way to care for yourself that not only replenishes your energy, but also enhances your joy and enriches every part of your life? In fact, what if you could flip that around and use joy as a catalyst for ongoing self-care? Would that make it more attractive and important to you? Well, for today's episode of Life Mastery TV, I am joined by my friend and colleague, Janette Stuart, a best-selling author, speaker, teacher, certified angel card reader, blogger, pancreatic cancer survivor, and emissary of joy, who is going to share her wisdom with us about this very topic. So please welcome Janette back to the program.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here and to talk about this such an important topic of self-care and specifically joy as self-care. So thanks for letting me come on to the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I always enjoy sharing space with you, Janette. I think we have a deep spiritual bond that doesn't really lend itself well to easy description, but I've resonated with a lot of what you said, and you seem to resonate with what I say, and somehow we just kind of gel. It just feels really good to, to spend time with you. So I am glad you are here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say to the folks who are here on the live show, thank you for joining us. Please feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to try and address those as we proceed. So Janette, I know a lot about your personal story, and you and I have shared this, and you've been on my program before, and I think we've talked about it. But maybe our listeners aren't familiar with your situation and what it is that you have done in your life that has led you to this place of being the emissary of joy. Would you like to share a little bit about that journey and how you got there?
Yes, I'd love to. So growing up, self-care was something that was only for selfish women, good moms and wives, daughters, put everyone else first and them on the back burner if they were even on the agenda at all. And that was me. And so I would overgive, and I became sick with anemia. I gave so much, so literally my life force energy was like very depleted. And I realized how important self-care was at that time. And that was a very important part of my healing from pancreatic cancer, is to focus on self-care and focus on ways that I could flourish. That was my word of the year in 2019 when I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So I would focus on, it was part of my self-care. What can I do in this moment to feel better? How can I flourish? Which is great self-care, and at that time it could be taking a nap, it could be taking an anti-nausea pill, but I was focused on healing. I wasn't focused on I'm sick. And I think, that's a huge yet subtle difference. I knew I was going to get better. And I was knowing that better days are coming. And the way that I could do that was to focus on my healing and how I could get better and thrive in the moment, and with hope that better days were ahead.
Wow. Well, the first thing I want to say is congratulations for
Thank you.
first of all, having the courage to take care of yourself during an extremely difficult time. Yeah, a lot of people can easily fall into victim mindset and start thinking about, as you say, thinking about the sickness rather than the healing on the other side of the sickness. And that obviously can be even more debilitating. So well done, congratulations. But the other thing I
Thank you,
want
David.
to say, and I mean, you kind of just slid over this topic really smoothly as if it was just nothing. This idea of a pancreatic cancer diagnosis. I mean, most people would look at that as a death sentence because pancreatic cancer is one of the worst forms of cancer on the planet, and very few people survive. So I understand why you would gloss over it. Perhaps it's part of your idea of not focusing on the disease and staying into the thing, but it's an important detail because some people might be suffering with something similar right now. And I would like them to be able to acknowledge that they actually do have this challenge with their body and find the way, as you do, toward the healing energy, the healing mindset, the positive mindset. So can you talk a little bit about that? And, did you have any fear about this when you first started out? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yes, I definitely had fear when I was not feeling well, when I had the symptoms of, um, not being able to eat, disruption in my digestion, all of that. But receiving the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, I only knew of one person that had it in my whole life, in my whole surrounding. And it was a local dentist, and he passed away a week after the diagnosis.
Oh my God.
So I didn't know if I was going to make it to my next birthday. I didn't know if I was going to be able to see my son again. He lived out of state. There were so many uncertainties, but I had a wonderful support system, both here and in the angelic realm. And my doctor, when I received the diagnosis, he called me that night and gave me a lot of hope, telling me that there was a procedure called the Whipple procedure, which is a surgery that can be life-changing for folks. And during my medical process, I was diagnosed as having, borderline. Was it going, so it wasn't even a, yes, this is going to happen. But through chemotherapy, I was able to have that tumor shrink in size enough that it was able to be resected. So I was able to have the surgery. So, and when I was diagnosed, there was an 8% survival rate, which
Yeah.
which really sucks. It's really dismal, which means, there's a 92% chance that you're not going to make it to the
Right.
5-year thing. And I think I've told you in the past that my best friend also was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer the year after I was. And she had it metastasized and spread, and she I lost her in early 2023. So we'd been friends since kindergarten, best friends. I was in her wedding. Our boys grew up together. So that was difficult. But you talked about finding the joy, the focusing part about the disease. So I didn't own it. I said I received a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer.
Right. Right.
So I didn't allow it to be my truth. And And so that really helped. And then, of course, I talked to the angels, and they told me that cancer would be with me for a season and her lessons would last a lifetime. And they have. So I've been writing a lot about
Right.
it and talking a lot about it. And even today, we're talking about self care, but this is an important part of my journey, an important part of many people's journey that have a health challenge, that, how to navigate that, and that there's always hope. So I want to give people that hope, that sense of, even despite dismal possibilities, that there's always hope.
Yeah, that's
So,
beautiful. So there's a couple of things here that I noticed that I would like to point out, maybe amplify a little bit. The first, you said that you received well, we'll get to the receiving a diagnosis part in a second, but you were told that you had an 8% chance of surviving. And for many people, that means there's a 92% chance of not surviving. But I think what's really, really important here, you obviously focused on that 8%. You said, there's a place for me on the other side of this, and I'm in that 8%. I don't really care what anybody has to say. That reminds me of my own journey. When I made the decision to be a fighter pilot, I was told that there were going to be 10,000 other people vying for the role of fighter pilot. So I had basically a 1 or 2 in 10,000 chance of making it. And I said, no problem. There's 1 or 2 seats there available, and I want one of them. I don't want both. I only want one. That's it.
right. You weren't being selfish, right?
That's right. It was a mindset shift. And that is the point I'm trying to make here. We have a choice in how we think about things. We have a choice in what we focus our attention on. We always have that choice. So we can choose to say, oh, well, there's only there's a 98% chance I'm going to die, so I might as well go start smoking and drinking and just having a good time for the next 2 weeks or however long I have left. Or you can say, wait a minute, there's an 8% chance I can make it. I'm going to focus on doing everything I can to maximize the possibility of that 8% so that I get through that little gate. That's all I want. And I think that is what you're demonstrating to us here. And you did that for yourself, right? So now I want to come back to the other piece. Part of that mindset had to do with, I received a diagnosis. That is a fact. But I am not my diagnosis. That is another fact. And those two pieces you put together and said, I'm not going to own this. This is not who I am. Instead, I am going to own the truth of who I am, this divine, magnificent, angelic being of light and love, and I'm just going to find my way through. That is what people need to hear from this message.
Yeah. And that I didn't do it alone. So I had, help from the angels, from the divine. I had so much help from my husband and family and friends, and even strangers were praying for my recovery. And it's really hard to receive, especially being a woman. It's so easy to give, but to be on the receiving end of it was another part of that lesson. I had a coworker who I didn't really love working with her, but she reached out to me and she would bring us a meal after every chemo session. And it wasn't just a meal, it was the entree, salad, the bread, the dessert. So for those 5 months of my chemo, she would bring it twice a month. And I never would have anticipated that it would be her, but she was an angel to me, although at work,
Right.
that's not how I would describe her.
Yeah, isn't it interesting
just,
how people show up in different ways, in different contexts?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And to receive, right? Just like it's hard to give, we're talking about self-care, that we have to make efforts to prioritize our self-care, right? To take good time care of ourselves, like treating it like it's an important appointment, that we're going to keep putting it on our calendar. Maybe some people want to say Sunday is my day of self-care and spend an hour in
Right.
that process. Whatever it is, start out small, but to prioritize you, because it's not selfish, and taking good care of ourselves not only helps us, it helps every relationship we have, because we're filling our cup. And I want to fill my cup with joy. I don't want to fill it with despair. I don't want to fill it with anger. I don't want to fill it with anything other than joy and goodness and wonder. So how can I do that? So what brings me joy? What fills my cup? And those things are what keeps me focused. And it's different for all of us, David. What brings me joy may not be what brings you joy. And our folks here that are live on the session, they each have something that brings them joy. And we just need to give ourselves permission to experience that, because we are worthy of that exquisite care. And,
Absolutely.
For a lot of people, it's getting out in nature. It could be, reading, it could be writing, it could be a multitude of things, but what is that you want to do? And, make time to do it. So.
I think that's beautiful. I really love the idea of when you talk about prioritizing self-care, setting like a block of time within your calendar. I think this is such a great idea. And what I would actually encourage people to do is, have your calendar in a place where all the members of your family can see it, and you block out a chunk. You say, this is joy self-care section. You do not get
Right.
to prioritize this time. And what you're doing there is you're saying, I'm important enough to make this time for myself, but you're teaching your family that they could do the same thing if they want to.
Right.
And maybe you could
Exactly.
have a conversation with your family and say, look, why each of us needs to do this. We need to take our priority, and we have to put ourselves number one for these time slots. Now, maybe we can organize it so that we're all doing it at the same time. Maybe we're doing some of it together, and maybe we're not. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about
Mm-hmm.
self-care, focusing your attention on that. Beautiful. I love
Yeah,
it.
I agree. And the way I found that was through Julia Cameron's An Artist's
Right.
Way.
Yep.
And she talks about having an artist date.
Right.
And so it's a 2-hour time block that you do something by yourself, something you want to do, and you prioritize that time and make it a non-negotiable. And so I was doing this when I was working still. And the first one I did, I never thought I was creative. So the first one I did, I'm like, I'm not an artist, so whatever. I'll try, but I don't know what she's talking about. So the first one, my first artist date was I took myself to the movies and I saw the Lego movie. And that was all about creativity. And that was just like perfect timing to start out my artist date. And I forget how many I did. Was it 8? Was it 10? Was it 12? The important thing was I did a number of things by myself. I went to a flower show in San Francisco. I went to the museum, things that I wouldn't necessarily do with someone else, but I did it by myself. I went to a
Right.
nursery and walked among the flowers, and it was just great. And it was such great self-care because it's something I wanted to do, and it filled my cup up and benefited everyone around me because I was, you know, so over full of joy and goodness that it was spilling out all around me. And that's that's the place that we need to get to. So we don't want to be depleted in trying to take care of our responsibilities. We want to do it from, and I'm speaking from experience, because I would push, and it left me with a health scare with the anemia, and then with the pancreatic cancer several years later. So I'm prioritizing healthcare. I'm self-care. Healthcare too is a good thing about taking good care of yourself. Yesterday, I had such a fun time. I met a girlfriend and we went for ice cream, and we were talking about, the joys of being together and having this ice cream together at 11 o'clock in the morning. And Wayne
Right.
Dyer talks about, you could treat it like, oh, this is terrible for me to eat. I'm going to get fat. My cholesterol is going to go through the roof. All of that. But we were focusing on, oh, it's so good to be together. We hadn't seen each other in months. We were enjoying the ice cream. We both got a different thing, and we just relished in that time together. So that was definitely filling our cups. That was joy as self-care in action.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And once again, you are demonstrating the whole major point here, which is all about mindset, isn't it? You, as you
For
said, I
sure.
could choose to focus on all the negatives of eating this food. And of course, if you do that, what'll happen is those negatives will probably start to come to pass. Or you could choose to focus on the positives and enjoy the process. And guess what happens? More joy comes out. And the fat
Yes.
and the cholesterol and all that stuff doesn't even happen. It doesn't happen because you're
Yeah.
not giving it permission to happen in your life. So
Yeah.
mindset is like super, super critical. I also like the
That's
idea of,
huge.
yeah, you're talking about doing something, setting aside the time, blocking off the time, and doing something that you love. Maybe that you might not necessarily do with other people, but something that brings you that sense of joy and enthusiasm, love for life, and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and what are you doing when you do that? Well, you're increasing the level of joy in your life and simultaneously taking care of yourself. And isn't that what the whole topic title is here? Joy as self-care, self-care as joy.
Yeah. 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 It's not just I should do this. It's like I get to, you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
I'm going to sit out in the backyard on my swing and watch the clouds go by. That is joy as self care. Whatever that thing is, I'm going to enjoy watching the hummingbirds at my feeder. I'm going to enjoy walking and looking at all the neighborhood flowers in the area, just savoring the goodness that is there for us, paying attention and making sure that we take time for us by prioritizing that, because it doesn't happen if you don't make it a priority. Someday never comes.
that's right.
So we have to plan that time together, plan that time out so that it does come to pass.
Yeah, make it, instead of talking about someday, talk about today.
Yeah. Yep.
And I also think that word enjoy is kind of misleading. I think we should respell it, redefine it as enjoy, INJOY. I'm
Hmm.
going to
Yeah.
enjoy whatever it is I do.
Yeah, because you're in that energy of joy, right? That's one of the
Right,
highest vibrations a person can be in. It's way up there with love and appreciation, and
right.
joy. And sometimes when I type enjoy, I do little en and capital J, capital O, capital Y, because I want to magnify that energy
Right.
out. Spell check doesn't like it, but oh well.
Spell check doesn't know anything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
for
generally, I
sure.
mean, it's fine if I actually want to spell check something, I will click the button and say, please spell check this. But otherwise, I don't want your advanced checks on my text. Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you, but
just
no
me.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I can relate because I write a lot of poetry. And when I write poetry, I don't always capitalize the words that are normally capitalized. For example, I sometimes like to write an entire poem where all the words are in lowercase. It's a bit jarring, especially when one of the words is I, which is always supposed to be capitalized, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and of course, every spell checker in the world is going to say, wait a minute, this is wrong. No, it's not. Turn you off. Go away.
Yeah. Go
So,
away.
yeah. And so I love the idea. And joy. Yeah, that's great. Write it the way
Yeah.
you like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, and on my social media posts, I always end it with blessings of love, joy, and peace. Sometimes I
Right.
capitalize the joy. Sometimes, if the post is about peace, I'll capitalize the word peace. So have fun with it, right? Fun is also a great self-care. There's a difference between fun and joy, because joy can happen even in dark circumstances. But fun, that's more lighthearted, short time term. Um, Fun and joy can go together for sure. So yeah, and maybe Friday fun could be a part, where you spend a half an hour doing something fun to bring you joy for self care. There's just a multitude of ways to think about this and to prioritize your self care.
I actually believe that joy is an aspect of our true nature. And so
Yes.
really, when we talk about what brings me joy, I think what we're really saying is what brings me more deeply in connection with my true essence.
Mhm.
That's ultimately what I want people to get to, is to
Yeah,
know and experience and express the deep, full truth of who they really are. I mean,
exactly.
if that doesn't bring you joy, we got a big problem.
Right, right, exactly. And David, one of my favorite quotes is from Abraham Hicks. That it's a very long quote, and I don't know it by heart, but it talks about um, your true essence is joy. It's not just that, and it talks about joy, frolicking, and eager, and that's who you are. So we
Exactly.
forget that,
Yeah.
right? We forget I should be a responsible adult. I should do this. I should do that. But I get to have fun today. I get to prioritize my self care, and we by doing that, we are good examples for all those that are around us, right? That I'm taking good care of me. So my daughter in law can see it, my granddaughter can see it. This is how Nana spends her time. Um, so, I want to be like Nana. Nana's doing this. So we can be great examples for others. And it's just so important.
It is. It is. It's crucial,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think not only is it important just for ourselves, for self-care, but it's important for the world. It's important for the whole universe,
Right.
because the
Right.
more of us that can start taking responsibility and bringing our own level of awareness and self-love to a high enough point where we're starting to take care of ourselves, the more of us can do that, the greater the elevation of consciousness throughout the planet. And pretty
Yes.
soon, the
Yes.
people who are hanging back and are slow to do this, they won't have any choice but to elevate.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we each came here with a mission, right? So, like, it
Absolutely.
takes us a while to figure that out. Why am I here? Who am I? But once we do figure it out, like, My responsibility is to be the Janettest Janette I can be and fill my cup
I love
and
that.
be me. And your responsibility is to be the Davidest David you could be, right? And our
Right.
listeners on the recording, the same thing with you. And those live here, I'm not going to call out your names, but you can be your youest you too. And that is definitely filling your cup with joy because you're in alignment with the truth of who you really are. So,
Right. And as you say, and as I say too, everything else emanates out of that. You talked about answering the question, why am I here? Well, you can't really know the answer to that question until you know the answer to the other question, who am I?
yeah.
And that's the one that's even harder for people to figure out. And the reason it's so hard is because we spend so much of our time, especially in our early lives, listening to the conditioning of the people around us, and especially our
Right.
parents who want us to be good representatives for the family. We have to set a good example. We have to be able to show the world that mommy and daddy are great parents. That's kind of what's going on there. And hey, I remember when I was a parent of young children, I was worried about that too. Of course, I hadn't been doing any personal growth work at that point, and uh, I wasn't even aware of my own conditioning back then. But
Right.
all of
Right.
us, I think, if we can find out, if we raise our awareness enough to understand that we have been conditioned and shaped and programmed to some extent to behave the way we do, then we can start to maybe turn off some of those programs and maybe remove them altogether and take some of that conditioning and peel it away and get down to the nugget, the truth, the beauty, the magnificence, the joy, and all of that of who we really are. And once we do that,
Exactly.
all of a sudden, the why we're here will start to just make sense. And we'll say, oh, now I know why I'm here.
Right. Right. I agree, David. I think, I had clarity of who I was when I was 8 years old. I knew I was going to be an
Nice.
author. However, then, the teenage years came, like, how dare I even think I could do this? Who would care what I think? Who cares about this or that? So all of that stress and uncertainty of the growing up years. And, it was till I was in my mid 50s that I wrote my first book. And that was it guided by the angels as well. That is the tone.
Right. Beautiful. Janet, we seem to be having a little bit of a challenge with your Wi-Fi, I think. It's kind of getting a little
Really?
jittery here right now. You still
Oh
there?
man. I'm here. Great. So I hope it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that your audio is breaking up a little bit.
Oh goodness.
Let's just take a breather. I can talk a little bit. You can you can take a breath. I guess what I would like to say, first of all, is this topic is so important. This idea of self-care, this idea of connecting in with your joy, with your essence of who you really are, and then sharing that out with the world without apology, without any form of guilt. Don't feel guilty about it because you are important. You are worthy. You deserve to be able to take care of yourself and to be seen as someone who takes care of him or herself. That's something that I think everybody has to embrace. So, Janette, I'd like to ask you now if, for somebody who's considering starting this kind of a practice of self-care, some people might be thinking, oh, it's going to cost a whole lot of money. I'm going to have to do all these things and so forth. Do you have some suggestions about what people can do to begin that process?
Yeah, there's so many ways, low cost ways, no cost ways to take care of yourself. One of my favorite no-cost ways is to go for a walk in nature, right? I don't even have to get in the car. I can walk around my neighborhood. I can go to a park. Just that shift of energy and looking for the goodness in nature, watching the sky. The sky is ever changing at night and day. And so that is a way to, think of when you were a kid, that you would spend time using your imagination, looking at the clouds and seeing, ooh, that's the doorway to heaven. That's an elephant. That is my great grandma. Um, and there's just so many different ways um, you can um, do a beauty treatment. You can take a cup of tea and sit in a swing and journal. Those are some of the things that I love to do, but it's personal. So what is it that you love to do, and spend some time doing that. It doesn't even have to cost anything. It doesn't have to be a massage. It could be. It could be a day at the spa, but it doesn't have to be. You can do a beautiful massage on your hands or your feet by yourself with just some beautiful oils, some essential oils, just to to be able to take that time. It could be reading. It could be something that you can't get to during the week. Um,
Right.
so, does
Those are
anybody have
those are great
any
ideas. Yeah, yeah.
anybody have any ways that they want to um, embrace some joy as self-care? You can type those in the comments. And if you're listening to the recording, yeah, we're excited for you to share your ideas too. You could email me or David with your ideas of how you're going to move forward with your joy as self-care.
Right. There's a couple of things that came up as I was listening to you speak. Um, let's face it, one of the things that we all pretty much, I think we all have to do is we all have to eat. Well, one of the things that I started doing, especially since COVID came around, is I started cooking. And I discovered that I am a good cook. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy cooking. So here's a suggestion for you. I mean, you're going to have to cook anyway. You're going to have to eat anyway. So why not think of a recipe that you would love to eat yourself and figure out how to make it? I'll give you a crazy idea. How about something like beef Wellington? Now, there's something you don't eat every day.
Right, exactly.
Uh, and I got, so that's just an idea that I have. Another idea, one thing that has happened for me, when I moved here to Meridian, Idaho, about, I guess, 6 months or so after I got here, I got a dog from a rescue. Now, this is not a zero cost thing. You obviously have to pay to have a dog, and you also have to pay to take care of your dog. You got to buy food and you got to do vet and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a zero cost item. But let me tell you something. This dog has been one of my greatest sources of joy ever since I got him. And not only that, because he needs to go outside, it gives me the opportunity to walk him several times a day, and that gets me out in nature. It gets me doing things that I know are good for me. So, there's lots of different things you can do.
Right,
Janette had some great
exactly.
ideas. There's a couple more for you, and I'm sure you're thinking of things right now that you could do that would be awesome for you. I see
Yeah.
Wendy just put some things in the chat there. She talked about doing word searches, gardening, doing well, she just says nature. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but reading. Reading can be very joyful for people. Oh, I like waterfalls. Yeah, waterfalls. There's something about being next to a waterfall or even in a waterfall. If you can find one that, that where you can do that without really getting anybody upset. There's so many things, as you say. Thank you, Wendy, for all those great ideas.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Um, I went to Niagara Falls this May. and I went
Was
by
that a bucket
myself.
list item?
Well, it ended up being a bucket list item. I went for a writer's retreat in New York, and I thought, well,
Oh, yeah.
while I'm there, I might as well see Niagara Falls. And I did that. And so I got to be drenched in love with Niagara Falls, the Niagara River. And it was
Yeah.
just one of the amazing things, so beautiful. But like Wendy says, the gift of nature, even like being next to a body of water, it doesn't have to be anything as grand as Niagara Falls. It could be just a little walk in the park, looking at a creek, watching
Right.
butterflies, all of those good things.
You're right. It doesn't have to involve any work at all, really. One of the things that I absolutely love to do is just, if I can find a beach where there aren't too many people, you know, and if I can just sit on the beach and let the water just kind of flow in towards me, and I just let my eyes closed and listen to that water. I could do that for hours.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
And, if you can't get to the beach, there's so many apps on now that you could get nature sounds of the beach, of a jungle, of rain, of a lightning storm. There's ways to do
Right.
that. So we can fit it in here and there as we want and as we need, to put more joy into our lives so that we are better equipped to move forward in our days.
Well, one of the things that I have learned for myself, uh, we all have these things, you know, and many of us are attached at the hip to
Mhm.
those devices.
Yeah.
And one thing I always do when I go and walk my dog, that thing stays home. I do not take it with me. Uh, I like to separate from all of the electronic devices to the maximum extent possible, if I can. That way, it allows me to really feel like I'm in nature. I don't
Yeah.
have the direct connection anymore. Um,
Right.
Now, this is ironic from a guy who has spent most of his life, maybe not most of it now, but, now that I'm getting older, but I spent like 30 to 35 years in computer science related stuff, software engineering and all that kind of stuff. So I had computer on my desk in front of me most of my working life. Uh,
Mhm.
and so even today, a lot of my hobbies involve my computer, music and stuff like that, doing all the work that I'm doing with this book and everything else that we're doing. All of that involves the use of computers. So it really is important for me to make that separation, to unplug, even if
Yeah.
only for an hour when I go out for a walk with my dog.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Yeah.
would highly encourage that.
That's a great tip. In my love letters that I send out on select Sundays, I remind people of taking time for their self. And that's one that's always there, unplugged from technology. And like you say, David, I love to, well, I had the opportunity to meet David in person when we were up in Idaho last week. I guess it was last week. Um, and got to walk next to the Boise River with David and met his lovely dog. So that was fun. But I had my phone, so I took a picture of the river, made a video. And so that's very soothing. And that brings me joy to go back and to look at those images. So, for me, that's cool. I can put it, I'm not checking my email and things as we're walking along, but I'm like, oh, I have to take a picture of this, the
Right.
sun coming through these leaves and things like that. So, yeah, and make it your own. These are ideas that work for us, but, the important thing is to do something that brings you joy and to fill your cup up. So,
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned filling up your cup. Aside from that, why do you think self-care is such an essential aspect of our lives?
well, I think I'm using myself as an example that growing up, I was told, or I was conditioned to believe that, good moms, good mothers, daughters, workers. You put everybody else first, and then you were at the bottom of the list. It was,
Right.
you were selfish or a renegade if you were spending time doing something for you. That was considered selfish.
Hmm.
And so I think, there's more of a social norm about self care and, tying in with our mental health, which is huge. I'm so glad that there's becoming more of a movement, more normalizing self care. Because what happens is that, um, oh, Wendy, thanks for popping in. Glad you were here today. Thank you. Um, you know, uh, we're so busy. There's so much noise coming at us all the time. So I think it's very important for us to step away, to take the time for ourselves, to unplug, to fill our cups because there's so much that we could allow being depleted. It could be a long commute, it could be health issues, it could be work environment. There's lots of things that can be very draining for us. Relationships, some of our loved ones that can be a drain to us, that we need to replenish so that we're in a good place to move forward. And that's what we're talking about here today is focusing on joy so that we are living our best life at this time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Some of the things that you described obviously can be very stressful as well. I mean, we all have stressful lives. We all have to work. We all have to pay the bills. We all have to take care of our families if we are, parents or whatever.
Right.
And even if we're not parents, there's probably people in our families that, have their own issues going on, and that can add stress to our lives. So really, the
Right.
stress is the thing that really has a negative impact on us, probably greater than anything else, at least in the physical aspect of our world. And so if we can learn to practice self-care, then what are we doing? We're giving ourselves the opportunity to release that stress and
Mhm.
therefore reduce its negative effects, and
Right.
getting rid of cortisol in the system and keeping our heart rate at a good rate, and allowing our breathing to open up so that we're not feeling constricted or any of those things. Yeah, there's so many benefits to taking care of ourselves, not to
Right.
mention
Right.
the example that we're setting for other people in our lives who may need to learn how to take care of themselves too.
Exactly. Exactly. I like to say that it's a contagion for good, right? It's an upward spiral,
Yeah.
because there's no downside to self care. Um, you know, me taking care of myself benefits all of my relationships, and it helps me move forward, um, with making sure that I have enough sleep and that I'm nourished and that I'm filled with joy so that I can be the Janette's Janette I came here to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And that's powerful, you know. But the other thing that I want to say is being focused on self-care doesn't mean you have to stop being someone who cares for other people. As
Right.
a matter of
Right.
fact, I think the opposite is true. The more you can take care of yourself, the better the quality of the care that you will bring to anybody else who might need it. So if some strange situation occurs, you'll be ready to step in and provide support because you've been taking care of yourself. You'll be arriving with, as Janette talks about it, with a full cup. You'll be able to
Mhm.
share of that full cup with other people who might benefit from it. So the power of self-care is really, really far, far greater than we might give it credit for.
Right. I agree. A great topic for our conversation today, and so grateful that we could talk about this important topic, David.
Yeah, well, okay. Now, but before we go, I want you to talk about this idea of joy as your compass.
Okay.
We we
So,
we we we've kind of been alluding to it and maybe even pointing to it a little bit here, but I'd like to make this the final point of our conversation today. So why don't
Great.
you dive into that a little bit?
So with a compass, it shows the direction, right? You take your compass out and, from my Girl Scout days, okay, that way's north, that way's east, that way's west. So it helps you find your way, right? If you're lost or whatever. So that's our metaphor today. But using joy as my compass. So when I'm making decisions, is this going to bring me more joy in life, or is this going to be too big of a drain for me? So using joy as a mechanism for decision making, that's what I feel that using joy as a compass is.
Nice. And of course, that's exactly right. A compass points in a particular direction. It always points towards true north, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it actually points to magnetic north, but for all practical purposes, it could be true north.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then our true north is another thing, right? So
Yeah.
I think we each have our own true north of where we're hoping to go and find our direction there each step of the way. And our journey is not a straight line. It's up and down and around and under and over and
right.
over the river and through the woods, as they say.
Well, if you think about it for a moment, how boring would life be if it was a straight line?
Right.
It's all the little
Exactly.
detours and the bumps and that's what makes life interesting.
Yeah.
That's what makes it exciting in my
Yep.
mind.
All the little things that come at you, the unplanned opportunities, or when life sends you a lemon, are you going to make lemonade, or are you going to throw that lemon through the window? What are you going to do when those lemons come?
It's funny. I love lemons. I really do. I eat many of them. I just love them. Anyway, this has been a great conversation, Janette.
Yes.
I always enjoy sharing the space with you, and I think that we have really covered this topic pretty thoroughly here. Is there any further detail that you'd like to share before I begin wrapping up? Any deeper words of wisdom that you haven't already shared?
Well, just to prioritize yourself. You're important. Treat that commitment like any other important commitment on your calendar. If you don't make time for it, it's not going to happen, and you're definitely worth it. And you'll benefit not only you, but all of those that you come in contact with. So, for your heart.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Folks, I just wanted to say, Janette is one of the co-authors on my recently published book, Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. She wrote chapter 3, and that topic is all about your word of the year. And anyway, if you'd like to grab a copy of that, you can. I have my book right there. Book link is there. You can go ahead and grab that. And we'd love to have you pick up a copy and maybe write a review on Amazon, because every review helps us to spread the word. And I think this is one of those books that really deserves to get some spreading and some sharing. Anyway, I want to say, take advantage of these actionable tools and strategies that we've shared with you today to elevate your self-care practice. Get a deeper understanding of why self-care matters and bring it more into your daily routine, and use joy as a guiding life in your life. Whether you're new to this whole self-care idea or looking for ways to enhance your current practices, use the inspiration and guidance you receive here to embrace self-care as a transformative act of love. Thank you all for watching today's program. Remember, you can catch the recordings of this and every other episode I do on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And friends, I invite you to remember to practice my Life Mastery mantra. It goes like this. You can do this every day, at least once a day, and I think you'll find that it'll make a big shift in your life. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Until we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I am your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. I'll see you next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.